The skeleton of Mr. John Adeyemi Abiola lay perfectly still on his bed for nearly 4 years, staring at the ceiling with empty eyes while his neighbors ate, slept, and lived just a few feet away on the other side of a tall fence. When the police finally broke into the house in September 2022, they found a scene that looked like a movie about the end of the world. 2 mobile phones were placed near his hands, and a third one was still plugged into the wall, trying to charge from a power grid that had long ago forgotten this house existed. The most shocking part of the discovery was not just the bones, but the fact that Mr. Abiola had been a successful engineer, a father, and a brother, yet not one person in the entire world had come to knock on his door since 2019. This was a man who had built a wall so high and a gate so solid that he created a perfect tomb for himself while he was still alive. His death was not an execution by a criminal, but a silent sentence carried out by his own choice to be completely alone. Mr. John Adeyemi Abiola moved to the Adeosun community in the Ido local government area of Oyo State around July 2017 with a very specific plan for how he wanted to live his life. He was a 67-year-old man who had spent many years working as a professional engineer in Port Harcourt, and he used his skills to design a house that was focused entirely on privacy. In Nigeria, many people build fences, but Mr. Abiola's fence was different because it was almost as tall as the roof of the house itself, and the metal gate had no holes or gaps for anyone to look through. He did not want people to see when he was home or when he was away, and he rarely spoke to the people living in the houses next to him. Most of the neighbors only knew him as the quiet man who traveled back to Port Harcourt for work. So when they stopped seeing him in late 2018 and early 2019, they just assumed he had moved back to the city where he used to work. Nobody thought to call the police or check the house because the gate was locked from the inside, making it look like the owner was simply away on a long trip. As the months turned into years, the house at the end of the street began to change from a home into a dangerous jungle that terrified everyone in the neighborhood. Between 2019 and 2022, the grass grew taller than the cars, and thick vines began to wrap around the walls of the house until the windows were almost completely covered by green leaves. Because the compound was so overgrown, it became a home for wild animals and very dangerous snakes that began to crawl over the high walls and into the yards of the neighbors. One man who moved in next door with his young children lived in constant fear because large snakes were constantly appearing in his garden, coming directly from Mr. Abiola's abandoned property. The neighbors tried to have meetings to discuss the jungle house, but they were afraid of the law and did not want to get into trouble for breaking into someone's private property without permission. They spent 2 years watching the forest grow higher and higher, never realizing that the owner was lying just a few inches away on the other side of the bedroom wall. Finally, in September 2022, the danger from the snakes became so bad that the Landlords Association decided they could no longer wait for the owner to return from his supposed trip. They went to the local police station and explained that the abandoned house was now a threat to the safety of every child and adult in the community. The police gave them the legal power to break the lock and clear the bushes so the neighborhood could be safe again. On a Sunday morning, a group of laborers arrived with tools to cut down the thick meads, but they struggled for a long time just to get through the front gate because it was bolted shut from the inside. When they finally forced their way into the yard, they found a car parked in the driveway that was so covered in dirt and plants that it looked like it had been sitting there for 100 years. As the workers cut away the vines from the main building, they noticed that one of the windows was slightly open, which seemed very strange for a house that was supposed to be empty. Mohammed Adeelua, a local carpenter who had actually worked for Mr. Abiola in the past, was the one who decided to climb up and look through that open window. He used a sharp tool to cut the mosquito net that was still stretched across the frame, and when the sunlight hit the inside of the room, he let out a scream that brought everyone running. Inside the room, Lying on the bed in a pair of shorts was the skeletal remains of the man they had all been waiting for. The body had completely decomposed over the last 4 years, leaving only the white bones and a few scraps of cloth. The people standing outside in the sun were hit with the sudden realization that they had been living next to a dead body for over 1,000 days without knowing it. The police were called immediately, and as they began to walk through the house, they found evidence that Mr. Abiola had been trying to take care of himself before he died. They found bottles of medicine for high blood pressure and malaria, suggesting that he might have felt sick and laid down to rest, never knowing that he would never wake up again.
The investigation into the death of Mr. Adeyemi Abiola revealed a mystery that was even more confusing than the discovery of his skeleton. When the police searched the house, they found his driver's license, which showed he was born in 1955, making him 67 years old, but they could not find any phone numbers for his family that actually worked. Every time the police tried to call a number from his contact list, the line was dead or had been given to a new person who didn't know who Mr. Abiola was. It was as if the man had intentionally deleted himself from the world long before his heart stopped beating. The detectives found it very strange that a man with 3 mobile phones and a laptop could die and stay missing for 4 years without a single person filing a missing person report. As they dug deeper into his history, they found out that Mr. Abiola had a very complicated relationship with his wife and children, and he had chosen to live in secret to avoid being found by them. If you want to make sure you never miss stories about the most incredible and mysterious crimes in history, you need to subscribe to Tremendous Crime in History right now. We spend hours researching real-life events like the story of Mr. Abiola to bring you the truth that other channels miss. By subscribing, you help us keep these stories alive so that the victims are never forgotten again. Click the button now so you can stay informed and stay safe. The police eventually found out that Mr. Abiola had a very big argument with his wife while they were living in Port Harcourt many years ago. After the fight, he decided to move to Ibadan and build a new house where she could never find him. But in his attempt to hide from her, he ended up hiding from everyone else too. His own brother later told the police that Mr. Abiola had changed into a different person after his marriage and started to withdraw from his siblings and cousins. The family had tried to talk to him and even suggested that he build a second house on his land so that tenants could live nearby and keep him company, which he actually started to do before he died. However, because he was so private, he never gave his family his new address in the Adeosun community. He told people he had children living in the United States and that he spoke to them on the phone, but none of those children seemed to realize that their father had stopped answering his phone for 4 entire years. This story is a warning about how easy it is to become invisible in the modern world. I want you to go to the comment section right now and write down the date of the last time you called your parents or your siblings. Let's see how many of us stay connected to our families. When the news of the skeleton reached his family members, they were shocked, but they also explained that Mr. Abiola had always loved being alone since he was a young man. He was an engineer who was very focused on his health and was terrified of getting sick, which is why the police found so many vitamins and boxes of soda in his kitchen. It is very likely that he suffered a sudden medical emergency, like a heart attack or a stroke, and because his house was a fortress with high walls and a locked gate, he had no way to call for help. He died in the very privacy he had worked so hard to create. The most tragic part of the story is that if he had just one neighbor he was friendly with, or if he hadn't built his walls so high, someone might have seen him collapse through the window and saved his life. Instead, his desire to be left alone turned into a permanent silence that lasted until his body became nothing but bone and dust. The story of Mr. John Adeyemi Abiola is a powerful lesson for everyone who thinks that they don't need other people in their lives. We live in a world where we can do everything online and hide behind our fences, but we are still human beings who need to be checked on. Mr. Abiola was buried right there in his own compound, the same place where he had spent 4 years waiting to be found.
His death was officially investigated by the State Criminal Investigation Department to make sure no one had actually killed him, but all signs pointed to a natural death in total isolation. His story reminds us that while privacy is good, being part of a community is what keeps us safe. If you have a neighbor you haven't seen in a few days or a family member who hasn't answered their phone, take a moment to check on them, because you never know what is happening on the other side of the wall.
To locate him.
When I talk to two or three people, it is the same thing they said. We talk about him. He's a very quiet, he's a very quiet person. He doesn't keep him mad. One thing I know about him, he doesn't go after women. You understand? They were even begging him. Some people said they are begging him, but let us give you a while. He said, okay. And they were trying to even look for someone to be living with him in the house. He doesn't like the way the guy was doing. That he'd be okay. What he does, okay, he now build another small, so that person can be living.
Thank you for watching this deep dive into a real-life mystery on tremendous crime in history. Stories like this show us that the most frightening things aren't always ghosts or monsters, but the quiet moments that happen when no one is watching. If this story moved you or made you think about your own neighbors, please give this video a like and share it with someone you care about. We release new stories every week that explore the darkest and most interesting parts of human history and crime. Don't forget to hit the notification bell so you are the first to know when a new mystery is revealed. Stay connected, stay kind, and we will see you in the next story.